Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2025 GymACT Western Conference Championships. We have an exciting night of gymnastics here for you as 6 teams battle it out to find out who's going to be named the best of the West. We've got a lot of exciting drama to come for you and some incredible gymnastics. And I would like to take a moment before we get started as the teams are prepping for their first event to thank our executive producer on the GymACT media team, John Lucas, who is actually located in Northern California right now as we're here live in Reno, Nevada. He also just produced our Eastern Conference Championships all the way in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I just cannot stress enough how amazing it is, the group of people that are part of GymACT, and how amazing it is that we all come together to pull this off. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we are going to present to you the Western Conference Championships right here, where Arizona State, Washington, Bay Area Bandits, the Rocky Mountain Mavericks, the Texas Armadillos, and SC United will all be battling it out to try to qualify to GymACT National Championships in 2 weeks. Joined also on the floor is also the KC United Twisters, who are here representing their team that has already qualified to the Commissioner's Cup later this month. I'm joined today on the call by GymACT legend, Mr. Carl Meadle. Carl, thank you so much for being here with us.
Happy to be here, Kevin. Always a pleasure.
You know, Carl, we've done a couple of these together now, and I'm excited. Warm-ups were incredible.
That's right. We saw a lot of good skills happening. I think we're in for an exciting night of gymnastics, man. I know I say it every year, but it seems that every single year the caliber of gymnastics just keeps getting bigger in GymACT. Every event, every team are throwing some big skills, man, and I'm excited to see it.
Absolutely. You know, some of the big standouts from warm-up, Bay Area on parallel bars is going to be a fun rotation. That's going to be a really exciting rotation to watch. Also, Arizona State on rings is always a great rotation to watch. You know, this is going to be a fun battle. And the energy in this building is just unbelievable, and the meet hasn't even started yet. These teams are so hungry for it. And, Carl, I couldn't agree more. You know, I was walking around with Mark Bourget, the GymACT commissioner, earlier, and we were talking about that. A couple years ago, you know, you looked at a scoreboard from GymACT, and, you know, the top dogs were 15 points out ahead, and then there's another group 15 points behind them, and another group 15 points behind them. So Eastern Conference champions just finished up, and everybody's roughly 4 to 5 points apart. So GymACT has become this well-rounded, incredibly competitive field.
That's right. The ceiling has definitely raised quite a bit, and the teams have gotten a lot closer together. There is a very, very competitive field in both the East and West.
Absolutely. And I am just so grateful that we get to be here live and help bring it to all of you back home. A couple of big announcements. If you like what you're seeing here today, you want to get involved more with GymACT, make sure you check out gymact.org for every way you can get involved, where there's teams, there are new teams popping up all the time. So go to gymact.org or follow GymACT on social media to catch up with all the updates. If you have an athlete that is in high school and would like to come to one place to experience all of what GymACT has to offer, GymACT has 2 camps coming out this year. There's an East camp, I believe, in Cincinnati, and a West camp just outside of Denver. So if you're on this live stream and you've got a high school aged athlete that is thinking about college gymnastics, it is such a great place to get exposure to every single one of GymACT's opportunities in one place. So make sure you check all that out. We are in the 2-minute one touch right now. These guys have warmed up everything. They're warming up their first event again, just getting re-familiar with it, and then we're going to be off to the races. You know, Carl, as an athlete, what's tricky about the 2-minute one touch? What's your strategy as an athlete in the 2-minute one touch?
Well, at this point, they've already warmed up all their major skills in the major warm-ups. This is more just about getting yourself reacquainted with the equipment, making sure you're staying warm, and just giving yourself that last confidence boost before you get up on the equipment for the big one, for the big turn.
Absolutely. And, you know, this 2-minute touch can be such a double-edged sword, in my opinion. You know, it can be the biggest confidence booster, but if it doesn't feel quite as good as your open warm-up, it can also, you know, mess with your head a little bit.
You know, my strategy for it was always to just warm up basics, a couple giants, a basic dismount, nothing big. At this point, I've warmed up what I needed to warm up, and I didn't really want to mess with what I did, right? That was always my approach to it.
And, it definitely served you quite well. So I think that would be some great advice to anybody out here looking to compete. Our big change this year to the format is we're about to start competition here. The big change to the format is GymACT National Championships is split into two competitions. There's GymACT Nationals, which is using the large team format, which you have to qualify through conference championships to use. What that means is you have to place top 4 in your respective conference championships to qualify toward the large team to take a shot at winning GymACT Nationals. Now, anybody that doesn't qualify through Easterns and Westerns qualifies to the Commissioner's Cup. The big difference is the large team format gets to use a 5-up, 4 count. So they put 5 guys up on each piece of equipment, and the top 4 scores count at Nationals. The Commissioner's Cup is a 3-up, 3 count. So here's the drama we're going to be watching all day. Eastern Conference Championships, the 5th place team, it was New York Alliance with a 281.5. Here in the West, the 5th place team here needs to qualify with a 282 or higher to sneak the 9th possible spot for large team format. The at-large bid is at-large tonight, so that's the tight competition we're going to be watching.
And a tight competition we are going to get.
All right. We've got Arizona State up on floor, cooking some really nice landings. That's one of the biggest things on floor exercises is finding some good landings.
And it looks like we've got Alex Kotnick up for vault for SoCal United with a big Yurchenko 1.5.
That is beautiful. SCU coming in strong. They've definitely a team that has had some waves in it, and they are building back, and it's great to see. That was a big vault for them.
And watching over on the rings, we've got Bradley Stroud just wrapping up his set, and that's a good start for Washington on the rings.
And the Armadillos, the Texas Armadillos are taking a high bar. This is a team that almost dropped off the map last year and is here with 4 athletes. They're, again, trying to buy into that large team bid. We'll keep an eye on them. If I had to guess, they're definitely going to be a strong contender for the Commissioner's Cup at Nationals in 2 weeks in Sandy, Utah. Nice big double back. Just a big step on the landing there, but a solid, clean, very basic set from the Armadillos there. We're on vault with SCU. We can start with that big Yurchenko 1.5. What do they have to come up with? Nice laid out Kazumatsu. Small step out of bounds. You might be able to see that he stepped across line. That's not as big a deduction as people think. It's only a 1/10 of 1 foot leaves you out of bounds. So that's a solid score for SCU. All right, Carl on floor from Arizona State. This is an athlete that, from watching you do gymnastics and him do gymnastics, it's very similar. Very, very explosive. We're going to keep an eye on that floor camera. This is Nikki Franz for Arizona State.
Yep, I know the name well, and I think you're right. I think we're in for a big floor routine here.
Let's see what Nikki's got in his first pass right here. Should be a giant multiple salto pass right out of the gates here. Front lay, double front.
That is a huge amount of power. Unfortunately, a little bit more than I think he was prepared for.
Yep, just overcooked a little bit. So he's got to calm down here into his second pass. Big back 2.5, settles right into it. That's what coaches want to see. Rocky Mountain taking the parallel bars as Nikki's over on floor, showing off that strength. He's somebody we're going to see on rings later. Nikki into some beautiful Russian work over there on floor. As SCU brings down a beautiful laid out Kazumatsu right down the center of the landing mat. And Carl, the Texas Armadillos get the first stuck dismount of the night.
That's right.
Let's see what Rocky Mountain's got here on parallel bars. They're definitely one of those teams trying to fight to get into the large team format at Nationals. And a nice clean routine like that's going to help him do it.
All right, Nikki Franz wraps up his routine on floor for Arizona with a solid double pike. And it looks like Bay Area on pommel horse is about ready to send up their third guy.
As Washington on rings is really hitting some big stuff over here. Washington's done a lot of work on their routine, or on their ring lineup, and it's showing here at Western Conference Championships.
That's right. I think rings has to be in the past couple of years. One of their most improved events. I think from just a couple of years ago by being I think probably if not one of their weakest events, if not their weakest, to now being probably one of their cleanest overall. It shows even in the position of the rings when they're swinging, their support holds, their strength holds, everything looks so clean, so solid.
I couldn't agree more. And the Bay Area Bandits put up another great pommel routine over there as SC United put up another beautiful laid out Kazumatsu right down the middle of the landing.
Pommel horse is definitely going to be one of the events to watch tonight. I bet that the team that starts on pommels and the team that finishes on pommels will be two of the big ones to watch. Very hard event to start on. Very hard event to finish on. Anywhere in the middle, you can kind of play it by ear, you know? But I think if Bay Area can get a good pommel lineup or a good pommel rotation under their belts early in the rotation, early in the evening, they're in for a really good night.
I couldn't agree more. And, you know, I have quit commentating about pommel horse after about 3 Southwest Cups in a row where every time I went to talk about the guy on a horse, he fell. So we'll talk about it when there's nobody up there, but I'm going to refrain from commenting on horse. It is a fun event to watch. I love it, but I don't want to jinx anybody. We're on high bar with the Texas Armadillos. Some nice line work here. Texas Armadillos definitely have some more basic routines, but, you know, in this current code for the sport, the basic routines that are done extremely well, just like that right there, actually are scoring quite well.
And we just saw our vault, our first double twisting vault of the evening. I'm sure there will be many more to come.
Nice Arabian double. It's a half turn into a front flip, so you take off backwards and land forward there on floor exercise for Arizona State. Big 2.5. Went to connect to a front layout for the connection, but I don't think he's going to get layout credit for that. It's okay. It's not the major deduction. Just drops his start value a little bit.
The difficult thing on floor, balancing power and precision. You got to have power on floor, but you got to make sure you know where to aim it.
That is a great way to put that, Carl. Power versus precision. That's floor and vault to a T. And this is something we're going to talk about all night, Carl, is, you know, we're watching this floor routine from Arizona State, and you can tell he's right on the edge of keeping that power in control. And as an athlete, it is so hard when you start to get out of the rhythm of your routine a little bit. You get overjuiced a little bit, like we saw Nikki on floor earlier, overcook his double front there. It's so hard to get back under control. And we just watched a beautiful double front dismount off parallel bars that is stuck for Rocky Mountain.
And moving back over to pommel horse for a minute, we're going to see some pretty good. There we go. Okay. I was expecting a little bit more travel work in there, but that was, again, I believe their 4th hit routine in a row.
I believe you are correct. Big Kovacs for Texas Armadillos.
For Texas. I love it when a guy is willing to put a Kovacs on top of the bar where it's supposed to be. Not a lot of guys have the stones to do that, to make sure it's in catching range every time.
Absolutely. It's a scary release to put on top of the bar. Your brain wants to put it a little behind, and you're right. He put that right over top. That's a big layout full out. Texas Armadillos showing they're here. And
that was a solid routine.
And a definite force to be reckoned with. We're back on still rings with Washington.
Nice, stable landing on the Giant.
A little bit of a struggle there on the back, Giant.
But again, even with a little bit of swing, watch how stable he keeps the rings in his handstand supports. That's what I said. Keeping those stable supports is going to give Washington a lot of tenths back as they go through the evening.
Absolutely. And it'd be interesting to know what they've been focusing on to make that difference. But Carl, you're absolutely right. The last couple of years, that is a clear difference in their ring lineup. There's a 2.5 front lay from Arizona State on floor exercise. Oh, Carl, we haven't talked a lot about the Mavericks yet, but I'm watching their parallel bar lineup, and man, have they put in work on parallel bars.
They've looked pretty solid all season, and yeah, you're absolutely right. This is a very, very solid start to the evening for them. I don't think I've seen a major error yet. Every guy that's gone up has looked solid, and there you go. Nice, beautiful double pike landing. Yeah, they seem dialed in tonight.
Taking to the pommel horse for Bay Area Bandits, this is the GymACT legend himself, William Pierce. We're going to talk more about him later tonight, but if you've been following GymACT, you know the name William Pierce. Great athlete to watch. Keep an eye on that pommel horse camera for some great gymnastics.
Will's always an amazing guy to watch on pommels. He swings like very few guys in the United States do. He's got style. Fighting on that dismount. Got it up and around. Definitely a balance check there at the end. That was cost a few tenths.
Just wow. There are very few people that swing like that. He swings with so much strength. And, horse is one of those events that people say is supposed to only be swung. It's not supposed to be a strength event. But when strength is what you've got, he makes it work for him. There's so many things I want to say during that routine, but as I said earlier, I don't want to be accused of, changing the outcome of this meet. So that was a great rotation for Bay Area. They are going to be in a strong contention for a top 3 finish here.
Looks like we've got senior Xander Agate on the rings for Washington now. Some solid cross work. Xander's gotten incredibly strong.
Yes, he has. Year. Will Howard on floor exercise for Arizona State with a big tuck double-double.
Arizona definitely brings some big tumbling to the table. Most likely some of the best we're going to see this evening.
I couldn't agree more. Arizona State definitely has consistently brought a big floor lineup. Beautiful, beautiful dismount there from Washington on still rings. All right, we're still on floor here with Will Howard from Arizona State. This should be his dismount. See what he's got. That was a big floor routine for Arizona State. The hardest thing on floor exercise, though, is every single landing. There are so many landings involved in floor. And if you hop back larger than your own foot, so think about how small that is coming out of a large multiple twisting, multiple flipping element. If you hop larger than your own foot, it's a 3/10 deduction. So if you've got 4 landings and you hop 3/10 on every single one of them, that's 1.2 gone. So floor comes down to just landings. When we got a lot of power like Arizona State does, it's extremely hard to find that control.
And I believe that wraps up this first rotation.
It looks like we still have one more for Washington. And this is another one of those things that I like to talk about with people at home, is this right here. If you're Murray on rings, this is what's called being iced out by the judges. He was ready long before them, so he had all that time to sit there and almost marinate in his own emotions, nerves, and mental state. Let's see how he handles it here on still rings with the Huskies.
A little rough on that first planche hold.
Yep, definitely looked like a slight short hold. Good position, though. That is a lock arm straight body press. That was impressive, not to be punny.
There we go, showing that trademark nice lock turned out ring position Washington's known so well for.
With the iron cross pull-out, that adds up to a C just for pulling out of that element on top of holding the first cross. This is a big ring routine.
Here comes the dismount. All right, Washington put down a pretty darn good rings rotation.
That is a fantastic rings rotation for the Huskies. We'll wait just a second for that score to come in, and we'll give you a quick update. We do not have live scores coming over this broadcast. However, if you look into the comments section, I believe my friend Brees has linked it in the comments below. So if you want to keep up, the team scores on Meet Scores Online or ScoreCats is going to be slightly off as they don't have a setting for GymACT. But if you want to see what each individual athlete is scoring, keep an eye right there on that link. As soon as that last score comes in, Carl and I will give you a quick update on where teams are landing and who's looking to stay out of that 4th place spot that's going to be the at-large bid that has to beat out New York Alliance for the final large team division spot at GymACT Nationals in 2 weeks in Sandy, Utah. All right, Carl, let's talk about first rotation. First rotation was amazing gymnastics. In fact, I don't think I saw a full fall except for maybe Arizona State on floor when Nikki came out of that corner.
I think we saw some hands down, and we had a couple of oopsies on the high bar, it looked like, early on. But overall, pretty solid rotation. I'm looking at team scores as they stand now. It looks like Bay Area put up a really good rotation on pommels. We've got multiple team scores above a 50 after the first rotation, which is a pretty strong place to be. I would be very curious to see how many teams break a 50 on pommels. I'm going to press hard on pommels today.
That's fair.
It could be a huge deciding factor.
Absolutely. And Bay Area is a younger team. Again, these teams as they start out can be just a little,
There is a mix. There's a lot of guys that are very, very strong in the rounded. We have a couple of very strong event specialists, and then we have guys that are filling in that are kind of still growing. But there's a lot of talent in that team. A lot of young talent in that team.
Absolutely. And GymACT itself, the talent pool is growing so fast, so sharp every single year. Some of the things we're going to see a little later on are just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it creates an environment where athletes are able to grow. I mean, I've known some of these guys from when they were junior athletes and seeing what they've done as they've moved into GymACT and what they've done from 1 year to the next in terms of growing their difficulty and growing bigger gymnastics. Gymnastics has been amazing.
Absolutely. And not only the bigger gymnastics, but how well it's being executed. Like you said, we were watching the armadillos on high bar, and we watched Texas put that Kovacs right over top. So many of the guys try to put that skill behind the bar because it's a multiple flipping salto over a steel bar 12 feet in the air. Like, it's crazy. And to have the competitive prowess to put it right on top of the bar and get his hands in early, that's the kind of stuff you see in some of the bigger pools of gymnastics like US Championships or NC2A finals. The GymACT name and brand has come so far, and it's continuing to grow. We've got a couple of probationary teams on the back burner that hopefully get their start in the upcoming 26 season, and it's just growing more and more, and the talent pool is just unbelievable. It's been really fun to watch. Carl, you and I were kind of the generation right as GymACT got started, and it's crazy to think back that was only 6-7 years ago.
That's right.
And to see what it's grown into now.
Yeah, I remember it was a very small little circle of those club teams back in the day. I'd imagine we're maybe 3 times the size that we were. Just about
4 or 5
more. Yeah,
because back when you and I were competing, it was just the club division that were invited to collegiate nationals with the academies, and it was basically Washington, Arizona State, and Temple, and that was pretty much it for a long time. And then, GymACT got started and SCU got involved, and, it just started to catapult, and we're up to 16 teams currently. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a whole process. If somebody wants to start a team, these are all 501c3s or nonprofits or privately held organizations. So in order to become part of GymACT, you really do have to apply to the board. The board has to really know that you're going to stick around, provide the opportunities, uphold the mission of GymACT, and then you go through what's called a starter season or a probationary season. So you have to go a full season competing in GymACT's regular season, proving you can put a lineup up, proving that you're going to uphold the sanctity of the mission of GymACT. Then you apply out of starter status for full status. If you get that approved, you can send athletes to the championship season, but only individual athletes. For example, the North Carolina Airmen just competed in Eastern Conference Championships, or one of our probationary or starter teams. And so they were only able to put 1 athlete up there because they have not been fully released into the entire league. So we're seeing more and more teams pop up all over the place. And it's just crazy exciting because now the competition can really get underway. And it's going to be so much fun to watch these next couple years as it has these last few. So quick score update. Right now, we do have SCU winning the meet. However, we all know they did start on vault, so that's going to be that's going to hold. But vault is one of the easiest places to hit that 50+ mark. So they're out to a good lead. We're going to see how long they can hold on to it and, kind of hold off some of these larger, more powerful programs. So SCU is sitting at 51.55 in first place, starting on vault. Arizona State right on their heels with a 51.2 starting on floor, with Bay Area Bandits rounding out the top three at a 50.25 starting on pommel horse. And like you said earlier, Carl, that's over a point from the person in front of them, but they did start on pommel horse, and that's a hard place to start. Washington starting at a 49.6 on still rings. That does seem to be just a little low from what we've seen from Washington in the past, rounding out the fourth place. Rocky Mountain starting on parallel bars coming in at a 48.1, with the Texas Armadillos starting on high bar at a 44.05. So we've got a lot of gymnastics left to do. That is by no means how the final result is going to come out, but it's how it's starting here at Western Conference Championships live in Reno, Nevada.
Now, moving into this next rotation, I think that Arizona State is going to have a very good response to the Bay Area strong start on pommels, as they are a very strong team on pommel horse as well. Washington's got some big vaults that are going to be happening here. Rocky Mountain, I'm certain, is going to have some good stuff to show on the high bar, as we're warming up some solid releases already.
And I think the Bay Area Bandits are going to have some good, solid stuff on rings. They've got some really strong athletes. Like you were saying, I think Arizona State's going to try to answer that 51.55, the 50.25 that Bay Area put up on horse. And if they can stay on the horse, I think they've got a good shot at it.
That's right. I believe that they may even be pushing the difficulty on pommels a little bit higher than Bay Area. But of course, at the end of the day, it only matters if you stay on.
That's absolutely true. And one of the things that can happen on horses where you get, I call it the deduction stuck, when a routine starts to go just a little rough, and so it causes some deductions in the basic circle that builds the entire routine, and you occur deduction after deduction all routine long, that ends up coming up to more than a fall is worth. So that's one of those hard things. You want to fight to stay on, but also sometimes as an athlete, you got to realize you're off, get off the equipment, take your 30 seconds, and try to mitigate your deductions. I also think Washington's going to be a great rotation to watch here on vault. They've always been a strong vault squad. They've typically had a little bit of a hard time on landings on vault, so that's going to be kind of their big thing today. But we're going to see multiple twisting vaults. So this is going to be a great exciting rotation as we head into rotation number 2 at Western Conference Championships here with GymACT. All right, looks like we're winding down our 2-minute one touch. And we start the rotation with the Texas Armadillos on floor exercise.
Smart move. Get the scale out of the way fast.
And that's an interesting move because GymACT does not require the single leg balance element that the FIG requires. So normally that means that this athlete from Texas is thinking about heading to U.S. championships and trying to qualify through to some bigger competitions later down the line. So he's keeping it in there for his own development. And at conference championships, that's not a bad idea at all.
All right, we've got Franz up on the rings for the Bay Area Bandits.
Nikki Franz taken to the horse for Arizona State. And here we go on vault with the Huskies. We've got Bradley Stroud. Big iron cross pull-out from Bay Area Bandits there.
Yep, and Sam's making good use of my ring grips tonight.
He's wearing your grips?
That is correct. Someone had to use them.
That's a little sketchy, but rings, that's not too bad. If it was high bar, I'd be a little more worried. Washington Huskies starting off with a beautiful laid-out Kazumatsu right down the middle of the landing mat there. And that's what iron crosses are supposed to look like.
Yeah, Sam's done a good job of working on his positions over the season, getting the arms straight and locked, getting his holds to hold for full duration. He's done an amazing job on rings this year.
SCU putting down a nice parallel bar routine there with a nice big double back, just a small hop backwards. Some nice in-bar work here from Rocky Mountain on high bar. All right, we should be seeing a big dismount here from Rocky Mountain Mavs on high bar. Nice big double layout there. It's definitely piked in the hips. It'd be very interesting to see if the judges give that full layout credit or if they give it a piked a double pike dismount.
And Washington with a Kazumatsu half that just didn't quite make it around a feet, and that is a hard fall to take early in the rotation.
Absolutely. But we do have to remember that all these teams are using a 5-up, 4-count format. So it's not a disaster to the team score. However, this is where teams have to be really smart. If you're the athlete that fell, your job is to get back to the bench and make sure the next guy in line knows you've got his back so he can pick up for the mistake you just made. You know, this is a high level of athleticism. These guys, you know, mistakes are going to happen no matter how hard you train. You see it in the Olympics. You're going to see it here too. Looked like he just went for the stick a little too hard and just sat it down there. So we've got Xander Agate next for the Huskies, and stand on that vault runway. That's all you want to do is pick up for your teammate and see what he's got. If he can make up for that fall that he just had from his teammate there on vault.
And over here on the rings for Bay Area is a new member, Savion Perea. Savion is actually returning to the sport this year after spending a few years out of the sport. And he's had an amazing returning season so far. Savion's a brute. He's a strong guy.
Yeah, you definitely can tell how strong he is by those iron cross positions. And that's part of what I love so much about GymACT is the fact that it is providing opportunities to all kinds of athletes. You know, athletes that have been away for a while. And that's really funny because head coach and team captain actually for Bay Area is William Pierce, who did the exact same thing, took some time away from GymACT and then came back to help relaunch the Bay Area Bandits, rebrand them, and get them to what they are today.
Rocky Mountain is showing us some amazing release work here on the high bar.
Absolutely. As he comes in, should be winding up for a dismount here soon. Arizona State crushing another pommel horse rotation over there. So we'll see what their ending pommel horse score is going to look like, but they're off to a strong start for sure. We're with the Huskies on vault.
Adrian Facundo should be showing us a Yurchenko double full here. Adrian has won several event titles on vault over the season. And for good reason.
I was going to say, and that's why right there. Couple of tenths in the air and a small hop backwards from our vantage point that looked like it was only a 1/10 hop backwards. That was a nice vault for the Huskies. And that's what we're
contender. That would be a contender for an event title, I believe, tonight.
Absolutely. And that's what you want to see. As a coach, you know, you have a guy fall, the next couple of guys behind them just come in and pick up, and that's it. And those are the teams in this format that are going to come out on top. And, you know, the Huskies, you know, Carl, every time we're on a call together, we talk about the Huskies and the fact that they've always been in the top end of the sport, but they have a hard time putting it all the way together to find the top of the podium when it comes to national championships. And, you know, I think part of that, as we've talked about, is their geographic location. You know, if you want to go to sunny Arizona or if you want to go live in Washington in the, you know, winter, people are going to pick Arizona most of the time, you know. And so the Huskies have been really pushing, but now they've got this Bay Area team nipping at their heels to you know, almost take their spot. And so they're answering really well here on vault. And this guy on a horse from Arizona State, team captain Justin Smith. I love his gymnastics. He is a big guy, and he swings like he's just an animal on pommel horse.
Yeah, I saw him swinging during warm-up, and yes, you're absolutely right. He is a big guy, but he swings very well on that horse.
And it's just so impressive to watch, you know, just, you know, gymnasts are so typically, you know, 5'5", 5'6", maybe, you know, 110, 120 pounds, so these tiny little balls of muscle. So when you see a guy out here that is normal person size, is what I'm going to call Justin, but he swings like he's 105 pounds. It's incredible.
Alexi finishing up a good routine there for the Bandits.
I thought we were going to have a stick there, but he made the right call, made just a small step back, minimized his deductions down to 110.
Alexi should be going for an all-around position here, I believe, tonight.
Washington finishing out their rotation with a nice Yurchenko layout. Definitely can tell that the coaches didn't want to count that as a significantly lower start value, but with that fall earlier in the rotation, that definitely doesn't crush their team score at all. So it was very, very nice by Murray there from the Huskies just to kind of help minimize some of that deduction they've had earlier on in the rotation.
Now, so far, even with the fall, it looks like they're still counting up there at a little above a 50. So those other vaults absolutely did work for them.
Absolutely. And 50 is kind of the benchmark. You know, anything over a 300 in the GymACT code is a good team score. That's what top dogs are doing. Minnesota at Eastern Conference Championships earlier won conference championships with a 300.75. So the more events you can put above a 50, the better off you are.
Yep, Minnesota's definitely shown themselves to be the beast of the East. So whoever takes the title here tonight, they know they have some stiff competition here in a couple of weeks at Nationals.
Absolutely. We've got some great gymnastics going on. The Armadillos are over there on floor exercise. You know, smaller team working on picking up steam there in Texas, and they're bringing out some good gymnastics. And that's what we're seeing from the Armadillos, is they may not be doing the biggest gymnastics through their whole lineup, but it is good gymnastics. And there we go, Zach from Arizona State throwing down a beautiful, beautiful pommels routine, and you see him limping off there. He actually sustained an injury in warm-up, walked out for marching in crutches, and hopped up and just hit a pommel horse set for his team. That's what it means to be a college team member.
And not just a routine. I would venture to say that was the nicest routine that we've seen on pommel horse so far tonight.
Zach is definitely known for his pommel abilities. He's a junior that I've known for a long time. He's always been able to swing like that. So super awesome to see him out here hitting for his team. That is somebody we should keep an eye on for a contender for a title right here. And we are on rings with Bay Area Bandits. A Maltese into a Nakayama. That is not a skill you see very often. Carl, do you happen to know who this is from the Bandits?
This is... I know his first name is Toma. Toma is another newer addition to the Bandits this year. Yeah, really impressive guy. Very strong. Yeah, Toma's a pretty high caliber athlete. We're going to see some good stuff out of him tonight.
All right, we're winding down rotation number 2. Let's see what SCU has for us here on parallel bars. They've had a good rotation so far. We've got another routine or two to put up. You know, they took that commanding lead from vault earlier. Now they're trying to capitalize on it right here. Nice stutz to handstand. Just a couple little tense in form, but technique is very solid.
He's showing his handstand lines really well.
And that is the name of the game on pommel horse on parallel bars for sure. Nice big double tuck. Just a step backwards. That is going to be a nice score for SC United as they wrap up their parallel bar rotation. Arizona State swinging some nice pommel horse.
Some good travel work there. Just a hair of skew. You want to make sure when you're doing those travels, you're keeping your hips faced directly forwards. Any skew in the swing will result in a little bit of deduction. I believe it is a global deduction for one single deduction for the entirety of the travel. So still gaining more than he's losing on those. And I believe Arizona State has just gone 5 for 5 on pommels.
I believe you are correct. I did not see any falls. Don't want to jinx it, but it does look like they are done on pommel horse. We'll see what that last score coming in looks like. And if you're watching that parallel bar camera, you do see every now and then the Kansas City United Twisters are here in the house. They are already qualified to the Commissioner's Cup at Nationals. They have a couple athletes here representing their team here at Western Conference Championships. So they're hopping up in between the SC United guys, getting some warm-ups in, and then they'll compete more as a formality and getting some reps under their belt here at Western Conference Championships in preparation to chase after that Commissioner's Cup won by Florida Storm last year at Nationals. Beautiful line work here from Rocky Mountain on high bar. Very nice full spin to L. You don't see those very often anymore. This long attitudinal turning is very nice. Big dismount here from Rocky Mountain. Full twisting double layout with just a small hop. You know, Carl, the one thing we haven't seen a lot of so far, now we're only in rotation number 2, is stuck dismounts. I believe we've only had 2 so far tonight, and that could be a game changer for the teams that can find those stuck landings.
I agree. Now, I'll counter that by saying I do see a lot of big dismounts happening tonight, and so it looks like there's a lot of teams out there trying to risk the landings for a little bit more difficulty. And in the past, difficulty has been a big determining factor for those 2 or 3 teams that have been at the top. So it'll be interesting to see how that game plays out tonight.
Absolutely. You know, difficulty is a double-edged sword. You've got to do the math, and you've got to look at a skill and think, okay, it adds 4/10 to my start value, but how often can I stay on it, and can I complete it with less than 4/10 in deduction? And that's the name of the game, and the guys that can figure out that line between leaving enough difficulty in and making sure it's done clean enough, that's the fine balance here. And on still rings, we have team captain for the Bay Area Bandits, William Pierce. This is going to be a good ring routine right here.
Yep. All right. So Will should be moving up into some big swing work here. I think Will's aim is to get a nice clean routine, get on the rings, hit his stuff, and get off the rings as quick as possible, making sure he's mitigating deductions. And a fairly uncommon dismount there at the end. Front layout 1.5. You don't see a lot of forward flipping or twisting skills off of rings these days. So that's fun to see.
Great gymnastics here. I'm getting news that we may not have a high bar camera up. So we'll see if we can get that back here. We'll give you a little bit of a play-by-play as Rocky Mountain's on that event right now. Nice big full twisting double tuck there. We'll work with them and see if we can get that camera back for you here shortly.
And Kentucky is sending up their first athlete here on the parallel bars. So that's either a straight leg giant or okay, nice straight leg boy. Working that fast with the straight leg to the bottom will get him an extra 10th in difficulty.
And I've talked to Rocky Mountain is having some technical difficulties, so they're working on getting their camera back. Kansas City Twisters putting up a nice big double pike with just a small step. It's a great show of good gymnastics from a small team.
Now that was a very clean but fairly simple routine for the most part, but he ended it with a very large dismount. Now, as far as difficulty is concerned, dismounts are almost double weighted because whatever you gain in difficulty from your dismount, you also get that same amount in element group. And so an upgrade of a 1/10 is actually an upgrade of 2. So so the recipe of doing a clean, simple routine with a large dismount is not a bad approach.
Absolutely, and especially in this current code, and you'll see there is there's some guys on Bay Area that take advantage of that later in the competitions. We're going to keep an eye on some of those guys as they get through the road competition and get into some really, really big dismounts that you're barely going to see anywhere else in the sport.
Foreshadowing.
All right, and Kansas City is waiting for one more guy here. Like I said, they have already qualified on to nationals to compete for the Commissioner's Cup. Again, anybody that didn't hear about this earlier, at GymACT Nationals, there's really two competitions going on. There is the large team format, which is using 5-up, 4-count competition to compete for the king of GymACT, the national title. Then you can also qualify through the conference championship season that we're at right now. The teams below the top 9 teams in GymACT after today's competition will qualify for that. Everybody else can qualify in a 3-up, 3-count format for what's called the Commissioner's Cup. It's a way that GymACT is helping showcase starter teams and provide more opportunities for better competition throughout the whole sport. So we're on parallel bars with Kansas City. Empty swing there, but again, that could be a smart move as he had to connect that giant to a back toss. Very rare, smart move by Kansas City here to not try to connect those and take the fall. Just take the 3/10 per direction change and move on. Great competitive prowess there by Kansas City on parallel bars.
All right. And in just a moment, we will give you guys the updated team scores and see how things are lining up.
And it is an interesting scoreboard. We're going to wait just a second to see all the scores come through for sure to make sure that, another score doesn't come through and change the result. We are headed into rotation number 3 here. And so far, the quality and just consistency of gymnastics we're seeing here at Western Conference Championships is probably better than we've ever seen it. Carl, you and I called this meet last year, and I want to say the consistency was not anywhere near this. The amount of guys that just look confident and strong in their gymnastics is unbelievable.
You're absolutely right. I recall this time last year seeing a lot more major errors happening. It looks like, especially in the senior athletes here, that a lot of those kinks have been worked out this year.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to go over scores here real quick. So we've got some interesting stats here. Arizona State, without a surprise, has taken the lead. The surprise is they did it on pommel horse. Arizona State with a 53.2 out of that rotation, giving them a total of a 104.4 for the lead. Washington coming up into a strong second, 102.4 with a 52.3 on vault alone. Bay Area holding on to that third place right now with a 100.3, taking their still rings to a 50.05. Barely missing Washington on rings by 5/100ths of a point for that event title there. SCU holding on to that fourth place at a 47.1 on parallel bars. That seems like a pretty low parallel bar score for them. So I think they just were a little behind the ball, little dirty, no big major errors that we saw, but their gymnastics just must not have been quite as clean as we're used to seeing. Rocky Mountain sitting in that very dangerous 5th place spot at a 93.4. Their high bar rotation only came up to a 45.3. So Rocky Mountain is definitely in a battle to try to make sure they get out of that 5th spot so they hold on to the national format of 5 up, 4 count. Texas Armadillos coming in with an 89.6 with a 45.5 on floor, and Kansas City holding on to a 22.0 from parallel bars with only 2 athletes.
Now, you said before that the spacing between the teams on top has narrowed over the years. And as we're looking at this, there is not we're going to see how that changes here as we go into the third rotation, but there is absolutely room for the order of these top 4 teams to change here. 2 points in a rotation is not a huge setback.
Absolutely. And one of the big things here is the 5th place team from this meet, if they're trying to qualify into GymACT Nationals in a large team format, they have to beat a 281.5. That's the big kicker. The top 4 teams from each conference championships in the East and West are guaranteed that spot. Then there's an at-large bid for that 5th place team in both conferences. Whoever gets the higher score gets the last spot. So Rocky Mountain right now has got to claw their way back. However, they are on floor. Exercise was a great place for them to stack some difficulty and try to climb back up closer to SCU, who will be on high bar in this rotation.
Now, earlier, I said I was curious to see how Arizona State was going to respond to the Bay Area Bandits' strong start on Pommelhurst. And they certainly responded. A 53.2 is not only the highest Pommelhurst team score, it is also the highest total event score of the evening so far. And that will absolutely give them a massive edge throughout this entire competition.
And that absolutely could change also in the next 4 rotations. I apologize. All right, Bay Area starting off strong on vault with a nice big Kazumatsu. All right, Arizona State on rings. This is another strong event for them. So let's see how they hold up in rotation number 3 here.
Alex Kotnick for SoCal United on the high bar, massive objective. Pop full turn. Cool skill. And over the parallel bars, that was Bradley Stout for Washington with a very clean and very unconventional dismount off the P-bars. Clean landing for SoCal.
All right. I apologize to keep jumping in and out here. We're, like I said earlier, everyone on the GymACT media team is 100% volunteers, so sometimes we got to wear many hats. We are on floor with the Rocky Mountain Mavs as they are trying to claw their way back up next to SCU, who's on high bar right now. So this is going to be an interesting battle in this rotation to keep an eye on to see who can grab that at-large bid into GymACT Nationals in the large team format.
Here goes Alexei Trushev on vault for Bay Area. Solid Kazumatsu. A little bit skewed in the air, a little bit of shoulder wheel coming into the table. But good landing, solid vault overall. Arizona State is back on the rings. So some good swinging work and a solid dismount. And another nice clean landing from SoCal on the high bar. And here goes team captain Will Pierce on the vault. Will's been leading the Bandits from the front lines all season, both as a coach and a competitor. And Will just puts down a very, very nice Kazumatsu half twist to get that 4/10 start value bump over anybody else doing just the full twisting vault.
There's a huge double pike from the Mavs. All right, Mavs showing off some great non-acrobatic work here. Holding this handstand here. This is what's crazy about this is a breathing element, even though it's very, very, very strength oriented. The Mavs are answering SCU, but SCU is cranking on high bar over there. These two teams are deadlocked for that last spot to get into GymACT Nationals in the large team format.
And there's a stuck dismount for Southern California United.
That's great to see. We're finding some more sticks here. We are with the Huskies on parallel bars into a nice big double pike. The Huskies parallel bar lineup was our big talk of the big talk of our meet last year. Just watching them come up with the consistency. You know, they've always had some bigger skills, but keeping them really, really clean and staying on the bars has always been a little bit of a struggle. But you can tell they definitely have been putting in work on their parallel bar lineup this year also.
At the
Huskies, I think the Huskies are really feeling that pressure from the rest of GymACT coming up behind them, and they are answering the call for sure. They don't want to give up their spot. They've been on top of GymACT for a long time, and they're not going to give it up now. So it's really good to see them just continuing to fight and push to be better.
Moving on to Arizona State on the rings with some clean giant work. Arizona State has been putting up a good show so far. Every event they've been on, they have looked unshakable. And there's a huge double twisting, double back off the rings.
You know, I think the sting of having their crown taken from them last year is definitely lit a fire under these guys. You know, Minnesota came up and we're kind of, you know, the big dog nipping at the heels of the king, you know, because Arizona State has been on top of this division for so long. And the fact that they got beat last year, I think just made them more hungry than ever to answer that call. And that's what they're doing here tonight. I couldn't agree more, Carl. They just look unshakable. Now, we all know that's not true in this sport. You know, there's definitely a way to shake them, but no one's figured out how to do it just yet tonight.
Well, we sure as heck didn't get it figured out back in my day. Close.
SC United putting up some really nice angle work here on high bar, big dismount. Just a 3/10 step on the dismount. This is looking good.
SoCal's had a solid high bar rotation. They're swinging well, they're swinging big, and it's paying off. Watching Washington, I gotta say their support work has looked a lot cleaner so far tonight. Here comes a dismount, double tuck, and a fairly clean thing, a little bit step and a hop. So far, they do look much improved from last year. They've always had the difficulty, they've always had the composition. The consistency on parallel bars has been a huge struggle for them. I'm looking forward to seeing if that changes.
Now, one of the interesting things that has happened this rotation is the Bay Area Bandits only had 3 vaults to put up, and Toma did fall on his what's called a Driggs. It's a 2.5 twist or Kazumatsu plus 1.5. So that's going to leave the door open for that 4th place spot that we've been talking about.
That's right. Their vault event score will still be high, but again, a score of a 50 to 52 is not really that standout on vault. So that will absolutely bite them in the butt a little bit.
Well, I believe they only had 3 vaults, so it's going to leave them quite a bit lower. Let's see. Oh, they definitely had more than 3. They did have all 4, but they only had 4. So they are going to have to count that fall. With a 51.8 on vault, that's actually going to hold on fairly well. It's not going to be as detrimental as I thought it would be. Arizona State on rings is a beautiful handstand work here. Big dismount with a small hop.
Well, that is where Arizona State brings it, man, is they bring it in the dismount. Almost across the board, every event, they are always getting off the equipment with a statement.
SCU doesn't want to give up this fight with Rocky Mountain as he puts that Ginger right over the bar. This is some exciting gymnastics here. Rocky Mountain Mavs on floor, finding some clean landings as SC United on high bars, putting in some great angles. Big dismount coming up here for SC United. What do we got? Full twisting double layout. Keeps it on his feet. That was quick thinking there by SC
on that landing. And I believe that was Jonah Hahn, a freshman for the Huskies on parallel bars.
All right. Looks like Rocky Mountain's done on floor. We're winding down rotation number 3 here. And there's been some solid gymnastics. Arizona State's Nikki Franz, we watched him earlier on horse and floor. This is his specialty, though. This is going to be an exciting ring routine here for Arizona State. As Kansas City is prepped for another great show on high bar. And 2 years ago in Oklahoma, Arizona State was looking like they were going to have a hard time holding on to the championships until they went to rings. And this is where they showed out with ring routines like this one right here. Wow, back upright straight plunge, press to handstand from the straight plunge. This guy is strong.
I was just going to say, Arizona State has not been swinging super hard on the strength so far in this rotation, and he is absolutely a standout on this, but he's not sacrificing the clean lines and clean swings that the rest of the rotation has had.
Absolutely. It's an interesting recipe they've got. As the Huskies take back to the parallel bars.
Well, the recipe so far seems to be just a little bit of everything and all the right things. They've got the difficulty, they've got the landings.
And that is a stuck dismount for Arizona State on still rings. The Huskies look like they've got one more routine up of this rotation. Looks like Arizona State is done and locked on still rings. And the battle between SC United and Rocky Mountain. SCU was a 43.55 on high bar. Rocky Mountain was a 48.3. There was a 5-point difference between the two teams. They are now only separated by 1/10 of a point. Now, neither one of them has rotated a pommel horse. And SCU does have vault under their belt. The typically lowest scoring event of horse and the highest scoring event of vault are still at large in this battle between the two teams to see who's going to get that at-large bid to GymACT National Championships. This is still anybody's game. We'll give some score updates here in a minute once we know all the scores have come through the score system. I've definitely made that mistake one too many times as a coach, where you get excited, you look at the scoreboard, you think you know what's going on, and then one more score uploads and it changes the result. So once these guys start their next 2-minute one-touch warm-up, we'll give you a quick update on those scores. But it is an interesting battle here at 2025 Western Conference Championships in Reno, Nevada. This has also been a really exciting addition to the calendar for GymACT, as this is part of the Junior USA Gymnastics Western National Championships for their non-elite 8s, 7s, 8s, and 9s, and their elite level 6s. So we've got a fairly large crowd here for this championships, and a lot of young athletes out here watching these guys take on Western Conference Championships with GymACT and dreaming to be on this stage one day. And as they continue to get excited about it, the program's only going to grow, continue to shift, and continue to get more competitive like we're seeing here tonight.
That's right. As we look to continue to grow the sport, I can think of nothing better than to make sure that we are getting college gymnastics in front of the faces of as many up-and-coming athletes as possible. And having these championship meets combined with the champions for the juniors is a fantastic way to do that.
Absolutely, and it helps the college athletes and the GymACT athletes also because, it's hard to compete when there isn't a crowd to compete in front of it. It's hard to get the energy up in the building, and with these guys here, definitely helps everybody. Last year, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, GymACT National Championships was probably one of the most hyped competitions I've ever seen in my life because there were hundreds of juniors, both men's and women's junior athletes in the building, just getting amped out of their minds to watch, to see who was going to get crowned the king of GymACT. And that will be happening again in 2 weeks. So make sure you have liked and subscribed to the GymACT YouTube page right here. You do not want to miss that action. We have partnered with USA Gymnastics to hire their streaming team. So the stream quality, the USA Gymnastics streaming team always does a great job for us. So we definitely want to say thank you to them for allowing us to hire them to help get that production to a really high quality. So make sure you have all of your notifications turned on for our GymACT YouTube page right here, and keep an eye on the GymACT social media pages. As we get nearer, we'll make sure those links are up so it's easy to find as we see who's going to be crowned the king of GymACT and see who takes home that coveted Commissioner's Cup that Florida won last year.
We are still waiting for the final routine on the parallel bars to commence.
Yeah, Carl, I'm not really sure what happened in the last routine. The judges are debating a lot. There must be a question of credit for a skill or a discrepancy in the start value between the two judges that they're having to discuss. But we talked about this earlier, Carl. This is what we call getting iced out. This athlete's been ready for a long time. As an athlete, what'd you do in this situation to try to keep the nerves at bay?
Well, at this point, all you can do is trust what you've trained and trust what you've warmed up, and trust that no matter how long you wait, no matter how you feel, you've got what it takes to get it done when it matters. Bradley, you saw him right now, just going through some hand motions, right? He can't touch the equipment, but he can absolutely close his eyes and just visualize where the equipment is going to be when he starts swinging. And when you're sitting there for a prolonged period of time, that's kind of all you can do. You can control. You can control yourself. You can control what you're focusing on, making sure your nerves stay under control. And at the end of the day, what's a few more minutes between warm up and count?
Yeah, this has been a long time. That is a very tough spot to be in, standing at the ready, because the trick is once that hand goes up, like you see right there, you only have 30 seconds to start your routine, not touch the equipment, so if you aren't ready when they are, you only have 30 seconds to lock in and hit a routine. We are on parallel bars with the Huskies. Really nice handstand line there. Little around the side, but no deductions.
Zach has got solid execution on P-bars. He's got a good handstand line. He works his supports well. His dismount was short there, unfortunately. Did not get all the way through on the swing. That is an unfortunate end to an otherwise not very clean P-bar routine. And not quite the end of the P-bar rotation that Washington was looking for. However, I do think it was still one of their better ones, and I've seen them do it at a championship meet.
Absolutely. Okay, so all the scores should be through, because with that fall, that shouldn't affect Washington's score. So let's check it out. The scoreboard is definitely getting interesting. Arizona State staying on top with a 156.0, with that rings rotation going to 51.6. They are 1.5 points above the other two teams that have competed rings so far. They absolutely threw down the gauntlet there on still rings. Washington jumping up into second place, or holding on to a second place, I apologize, with a 152 even, with that parallel bar rotation coming up with a 49.6, so just under that 50 mark that everybody's trying to hold on to. Bay Area Bandits, now listen to this, Washington was a 152 even. Bay Area is at a 151.7 with a 51.4 vault rotation. Rocky Mountain jumps over SCU by a 142.3, holding on to a floor rotation of a 48.9. SCU, high bar rotation of a 43.5, rounding out the top five at a 141.8. And the Texas Armadillos coming in at a 127.2 with a 37.6 palm horse rotation. So the big battle here is still going to be between SCU and Rocky Mountain to see who can hold on to that fourth place spot to lock their position and not have to go to the at-large bid to GymACT Nationals in the large team format.
Now, looking ahead, I think we have two standout teams to watch here. Arizona State is going to put up some massive vaults, and a lot of them, I think. And Bay Area has a couple extremely difficult P-bar routines coming up. Routines that can absolutely help them close the gap on Washington. However, there's a lot of they're big routines, they're risky routines. So you're gonna have to make sure they stay on the bars and hit their routines the way they hit their routines solid.
And the Bay Area Bandits actually have an athlete competing a skill that I believe he is the only United States person to do. I have never seen another one. If I'm wrong about that, you can tell me in the comments. I won't argue with you, but this is going to be huge for Bay Area right here, just to see what they can put up, because like you said, they've got some big gymnastics to go here. Arizona State on vault, Bay Area Bandits on parallel bars, the Washington Huskies on high bar, which can be an exciting rotation for them to gain some ground. Rocky Mountain Mavericks taking the pommel horse, and that's going to be an interesting to see if they can hold on to that fourth place spot over SC United, that is on floor exercise. So that's going to be a hard one to hold on. SC United on floor, as Rocky Mountain's on pommel horse. It's going to be hard for Rocky Mountain to hold on to that fourth place spot. And the Texas Armadillos are going to be on still rings. All right, and I believe what we're waiting on here, we're waiting to start the 2-minute touch. So these guys have warmed up everything, but then every time they rotate to a new piece of equipment, they get 2 minutes to warm it up. I believe there's a score inquiry, which means that the Washington coaches have challenged a score from the judges on parallel bars. So the judges and the officials and the meet refs and everybody are talking about that score. Looks like that has been cleared, because inquiries all have to be finalized before the next rotation can begin. So sometimes it does end up delaying it.
And it looks like that inquiry was successful. That has raised Washington's overall team score by 0.2, up to a 152.2.
So that puts a 5/10 gap between the Bay Area Bandits and Washington Huskies. So the Huskies are headed to high bar, which is normally a solid event for them. With Bay Area going to parallel bars, though, that's going to be a fun rotation to watch. 2 big rotations. It's going to come on to who can stay on their equipment and who can stay clean while they're on it. And Arizona State, almost 4 points, 3.8 ahead of Washington. It's going to be really hard for Washington to reel them in while they're on vault.
And already I'm seeing Arizona State warming up some extremely explosive vaults.
And this is a turn. You know, when we talk about scoreboards and gymnastics, we talk about the turn. We're past 3 events. This is where we can actually start making some predictions. You know, when you jump out to an early lead, it almost doesn't mean anything in this sport, as sad as that is to say. But they are catching, you know, everybody's tightening up really, really well here. And it's going to be really fascinating to watch these next 3 rotations. Carl, I have an odd feeling. I'm going to make a prediction now. I think Arizona State is going to get out in front a little bit, but I think everybody below Arizona State, this is going to be a tight battle all the way to the last rotation.
It is open season, I believe. I do agree that Arizona State has got a lead that is going to be very difficult to close. However, the following 3 teams below them, Washington, the Bay Area, Rocky Mountain, and so honestly, those next 4 teams, there's a lot that could happen there. Bay Area and Washington, I'm especially curious to see how the placements change here, if they do, in the following rotations. In part because I'm involved with both programs, but also because they have been neck and neck the entire night.
Absolutely. We're going to have this rotation. We're going to have 2 really tight battles to watch. It's going to be Washington on high bar versus Bay Area on parallel bars. It's going to be SC United on floor versus Rocky Mountain Mavericks on horse. And then we're going to get to watch some great vaults on, some great skills on vault from Arizona State. But as you said earlier, Carl, I think you said it best when you said, you know, the big gymnastics is also the biggest risk. And Arizona State brings a lot of risk to their vault lineup. So if they hit, it's going to pay off. However, it can also go the other direction on them. All right, SCU is off to a strong start on floor.
Floor is absolutely one of SoCal's strongest events. We're already opening with some strong difficulty. Some bounces on the landings. Again, as the skills get bigger, you notice that the deductions on the landings will generally get bigger as well. The teams that end up showing the best scores on floor are the ones that can keep their difficulty and keep that power, but they also know how to put down a landing hard and make sure those feet stay down.
Absolutely. So we've got all kinds of great gymnastics going on here. The Texas Armadillos are on still rings, and unfortunately Rocky Mountain has already taken their first fall on this pommel rotation. Big vault by Arizona State. That was a back double full by the Armadillos. Did you see that?
I did. I have seen maybe fewer than 10 of those in my life, I think, I would wager. And quite a few of them, I believe, are happening in GymACT. Now, here goes Riley Lyman for Washington. Riley is a good, solid starter on just about every event he makes lineup on. He's clean, he swings well, and he has composure. Here he goes, winding up for his first release move. Huge straddle to Tkachev.
Bay Area answering with a nice big double tuck there, just a hop. Huskies answering with another beautiful pike to Tkachev there. Love that one-arm giant with arm all the way down by the side.
I'm going to try my best to pay attention to how many high bar routines we see tonight that have more than one release move in them. My guess is not many.
I couldn't agree more. You know, release moves are highly, highly risky, and so most guys in this division are not putting multiple together. All right, Mr. Peacock here on vault. That was a Yurchenko double full, and he almost stuck it for Arizona State.
And Southern California United on the floor, mounting with an enormous double pike.
All right. SC United just checking that handstand a little bit. That's a rare deduction, but did a great job of staying calm. See what he's got for us in his next pass. Front layout to front full. Small step. It looks like he kept it in bounds. SC United finding his feet there on that nice dismount. This is going to be a tough rotation to call as Huskies take back to the high bar as Arizona State comes in hot on vault. That's another double full with a small hop. You called it, Carl.
Yep, Arizona on vault historically has been extremely competitive. They have the difficulty across the board. I believe all 5 of their vaults will be within that 14 point, that mid 14 start value, and the execution has been outstanding so far.
I believe so.
For Washington, Trevor Ruggieri is a tall guy. If that doesn't show from the video, trust me, seeing him in person swing is incredible. And just on that connection, he caught his Tkachev well, but did not initiate the tap out of it strong enough to get the height he needed to put the Ginger back on.
All right, Nicky Franz on vault. Let's see what he's got here from Arizona State. I know he's got 2 really big vaults in his back pocket. We'll see which one he chooses to use here at GymACT Western Conference Championships. A handspring front pike, full twist.
That is an enormous block on that handspring. He was flying off of that table.
Absolutely. I know he has a handspring double front. Here we go. We're on parallel bars with the Bandits.
This should be a good, clean routine with a fair amount of difficulty stacked in it as well. A little bit of an odd angle on that Diom. A little bit muscled. Solid Stutz following. Clean peach to L. Making sure he breaks above that horizontal line. It's something that not a lot of guys remember to do on that skill.
It's absolutely right. As they flip over from under the bars, their toes have to remain above horizontal or it's a deduction. There's a big dismount there and just sets it back. So Bay Area opening the door, but Washington also had a fall. So this is going to be a tight battle between Washington and Bay Area. All right, Arizona State coming in with another big vault. There's a 2.5 with a small step. That is a big rotation for Arizona State. I think they're going to increase their lead by quite a bit. I think a lot of teams are going to have a hard time putting pressure on them and catching them. SC United Nice big double front there. Went for the stick and just dropped his heels and sat it down, so leaving the door open for Rocky Mountain.
Yeah, Arizona State has put up what might just be our first rotation to break a 55 on an event. That was incredible.
We'll see what happens. Last score comes in. Keep an eye on Bay Area Bandits on parallel bars. They've got some stuff over there that you are not going to want to miss. The Armadillo's putting down some big strength moves on still rings. Nice straddles Kacha from the Huskies on high bar.
I will say Washington's high bar has been exceptionally clean. A little bit short on that landing. Well, quite a bit short on that landing. But when they are on the bar, their lines, their rhythm, and their flight and their release moves has been really nice.
Absolutely. So this is going to be an interesting rotation to see where this all falls. Those two big battles we're watching between between SC United and Rocky Mountain, and then again between the Huskies and the Bandits. So the Bandits, I believe this next rotation or this next routine from the Bandits has some very unique skills on it. So keep an eye on that camera as we wait for the judges to salute the next routine here.
Xander Agate is up to Washington on the high bar.
That was a fun moment from where we're sitting at the head table. We just watched SCU, Bay Area Bandits, and Washington all salute in sync. So let's see these three routines come up and go strong.
That was a high-flying Yamawaki on the high bar for Xander. Xander is a strong dude. He has got so much power in his upper body, and he is making good use of it here. Alexei Trishev swinging well on the parallel bars. And SoCal's putting on a show on the floor, mounting with a beautiful, I believe, stuck double pike.
I believe you are correct. Huskies coming in for a big dismount, laid out full twisting double back. As the Bay Area Bandits takes a fall, this is going to be an exciting rotation. I truly don't know where these two big battles are going to fall. SC United, big 2.5, small hop. All right, we should be seeing a dismount here from SC United. Let's see what they've got here. They've been having a solid floor rotation.
Definitely their best of the night so far. All right, coming up next on P-Bars, we've got definitely one to watch for. Will Pierce is up. You know the name.
Really interesting story. Will Pierce actually started at SC United, did 4 years at SC United, took some time away from the sport, and then came back in Northern California, took the model that SC United has used to grow and start, and one of the pinnacle teams in GymACT, and took over what used to be the Northern California Condors, rebranded as the Bay Area Bandits, and has grown it to what it is today and started competing again. It is a truly incredible story. This man has been competing on the collegiate level for at least 6-7 years now.
More than that, because he's been retired for 6 or 7 years, and he's been going for 2 or 3 years before that. He has been in the sport a long time. I've had the privilege of knowing him for many, many years, and he has done amazing things for the sport, especially for GymACT.
Absolutely. He's part of the GymACT's push to just, he's on a lot of boards and working groups that GymACT has to continue just growing GymACT and moving it forward. And it's just amazing. As I tell everybody, the biggest reason I love GymACT is it is truly a labor of love. It is a passion. You know, no one out here on this floor is, you know, making $100,000 a year off this. No one's really making any money off this. We are here because we love the sport. We want to see more opportunities grow and the sanctity of competition stay true. So we are on the high bar with the Huskies as SCU takes to the floor with a huge full twisting double tuck. Small stumble there on floor from SCU. Will Pierce taking the parallel bars for Bay Area. So much great gymnastics happening at the same time. Wow. That was uncharacteristic from Will Pierce.
And there's a fantastic Kovacs from Zach Murray. I wasn't sure he was going to throw it, but I saw him warm up a really good one during the event warm-ups. And here comes a dismount. That's the way to do it. Solid routine from Zach Murray.
Zach Murray bringing a strong score to Washington. Like you said, not many guys will put that Kovacs right on the bar like that. It's so scary, but that was confidence. He put it right where he wanted it, put his hands out, and found that bar. Will Pierce back on the parallel bars from the Bay Area. So Texas Armadillo is finding a beautiful back upright straight flange.
You're going to see Will on P-bars use it. There's a lot of swings that have to land directly to handstand. And when he hits well. But there is so much that can go wrong when you have to land a skill directly in handstand, especially on that mount. And I have seen him struggle with that before. Wraps it up with a beautiful dismount, though. That was a fantastic recovery from Will.
This is some exciting gymnastics coming through here in rotation number 4 of the GymACT Western Conference Championships. Bay Area Bandits still have, I believe, only one more left on P-bars. As the Huskies, I believe, also only have one more left on high bar. Rocky Mountain waiting for their last guy to mount on pommel horse. SC United has finished up floor exercise with a good rotation. I don't think it was the best they could have done on floor. I don't think it's the best they have done on floor, but definitely solid. And the Texas Armadillos finished a great ring routine with a lot of difficulty in that stuck full twisting double tuck.
Coming up next on the high bar, we've got Bradley Stroud for Washington. And definitely another routine to watch on parallel bars with Evan Hymanson. Now, Evan's got a downgrade, unfortunately, a little bit. He's got a little bit of a finger injury. It's a little bit of a hand injury, so he's going to be working around that. But he has still got some amazing stuff to show on P-bars. He flies like he's on the high bar.
It truly is incredible. I'm, definitely bummed to hear that he's gotten injuries working around, but glad that it's a small enough injury that he's still able to compete, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks he can get it healed up and get ready for nationals, as hopefully they will be qualifying the largest team division, battling out for a podium finish at national championships.
And Bradley Stroud is on the bar for Washington as Kentucky almost sticks a double tuck dismount.
Kansas City is throwing down on floor over there. Those guys do know how to, they are the Kansas City Twisters for a reason. They are known for their tumbling. Their team, we're definitely going to talk a lot more as they go for the Commissioner's Cup at Nationals in 2 weeks. Beautiful straddle gotcha from Bradley Stroud here on high bar. The compression in his in-bar work is so good. Big dismount, little close to the bar. Oh, but and keeps it on his feet.
Putting on that landing.
What a fight. You see him shake his head there. That's always a struggle when you have such a good start to the routine. You just run out of gas a little bit there at the end. It's so disappointing, but he did such a great job of handling it. All right, Kansas City waiting for their next athlete to salute here on floor. Just waiting for Evan to salute with Bay Area Bandits. These will be the last 2 routines of this rotation. We'll have to wait a second for the judges clear, make sure there are no inquiries before we head to rotation number 5.
And Evan's definitely not the kind of guy to rush into a routine. He is the kind of guy, he's very slow, very methodical to prepare. But once he gets on the bars, he flies. He is so fast and he is so strong. Although I'll admit, I'm a little surprised to see him standing there ready before the judges have saluted. Usually when they're saluting to him, telling them that they are ready to judge his routine, he's still by the chalk box.
Interesting. So he has stepped up. Kansas City Twisters putting down a beautiful floor routine here. As I said, they're definitely going to be somebody who's going to be in contention for the Commissioner's Cup here in 2 weeks using the small team format, going 3 up 3 count at national championships in 2 weeks in Sandy, Utah. All right. There's some artistry too. Wow. All right, we are on parallel bars with the Bandits.
This should be a high-flying first skill here.
And a stuck double tuck from Kansas City.
Beautiful bobsar.
Named after USA Gymnastics Developmental Program Director Raj Bobsar, very famous gymnast here in the United States for a very long time.
Following that up with the Tapelt, very similar element, strong Healy. Evan is a machine on this event, and unfortunately I think that was the same finger that he'd stubbed before.
Interesting, very uncharacteristic fall there on that straddle cut. Big dismount.
As he does put his dismount down strong. Unfortunately, Evan is, and I've seen it happen before, where he will hit his big difficult skills well, and on something simple, half turn straddle cut, he'll have a bad hand placement here and there.
But that's normally how it goes. Unfortunately, at this level, when these guys are this good, their big skills are normally what they work on the most. So every now and then you just get a silly fall like that, and it's so frustrating as an athlete. Unfortunately, that was the routine I was talking about. Evan is a guy with the unique skill. Hopefully we get to see at national championships in 2 weeks. Hopefully he didn't just re-injure that finger. Then we get to see him at full force as he goes for an event title in 2 weeks in Sandy, Utah at national championships. All right, we are waiting just a minute to get that last score through, and we have some interesting things happening on the scoreboard. So we're going to wait just a second before we give you a score update.
Now, before we even look at the scoreboard, the two teams that were really tight before, Washington and Bay Area, both went into the rotations with some early mistakes, early on, and some mistakes at the end. So my guess is that they are still going to be fairly tight as far as the score spread. However, I wager that maybe still Bay Area, even with that big fall, might still have an edge over them.
You know, I think you're going to be right. It's going to be interesting to see what that last score does, because it is a 5-up 4-count meet. So they did have 2 falls. So it's going to be interesting to see which score each team gets to drop. There's an inquiry on high bar that we are going to wait on. So it's going to take just a moment, because they're going to be, looks like coaches are looking for a video review, which you are allowed to submit now during championship season. And they're just waiting to see if they can get this score replacement for Washington. So they're double checking. This is one of the things I love about our judging community. You know, coaches can come up and go, hey, you know, I think you made a mistake. Let's talk about this. They submit a formal inquiry. And if the judges are wrong, they'll review the video and make sure the accuracy of the scores is protected. And that is so big when it comes to the sanctity of competition. So we're going to sit tight for just a second here, because looking at the scoreboard right now, I'm not going to give anything away, but depending on what this inquiry does, it could change the stack of the scoreboard, as it is close. The big battle that we were watching earlier was SCU and Rocky Mountain. And, you know, Rocky Mountain being on a horse, we had a feeling that they weren't going to be able to, you know, keep SC United at bay. But you know what? They're actually really close. We'll talk about those two scores right now. SCU is sitting at a 188.95, and Rocky Mountain, after being on a horse, is actually only at a 188. So it is still a really tight battle, especially as Rocky Mountain goes to rings, which is typically a higher scoring event for them. And SC United has to go to horse, which if they stay on, they've got the difficulty to hit and do well with. But again, horse is all about whether you can stay on. All right, the meet ref has left the judges table. Looks like this inquiry might be cleared up. We're getting the thumbs up. Looks like the 2-minute 1 touches are going to be a go. All right, again, you are live here on the GymACT YouTube channel with the 2025 Western Conference Championships. If you have not done so already, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe to make sure you don't miss any more action in the GymACT community, especially in 2 weeks at National Championships, when we name the king of GymACT in the large team format and the coveted Commissioner's Cup that started last year. You don't want to miss that exciting competition. We are headed into rotation number 5, and as we stand, Arizona State is definitely running away with it just a little bit at a 210.65. And here's the kicker. The Bay Area Bandits, after that last routine goes in, are sitting at a 199.95 in a strong second place. Washington coming in with a 198.45. There's a decent gap there. However, Bay Area is coming to high bar, as Washington is headed to floor. Floor is definitely one of their stronger events, so it's going to be hard for Bay Area to hold on to that lead over Washington while they're on floor. SC United coming in at a 188.95 in that 4th place, and Rocky Mountain at a 188.0. Now, here's what we're watching. Here's the intense battle right now. The only locked spot to large team format is the top 4. So if the scoreboard were to stop right now, SC United would hold on to that format. However, Rocky Mountain, or whoever's in 5th place when we leave here today, is going to battle it out with New York Alliance,
who was in 5th place at Eastern Conference Championships. Now, they ended with a 281.5. So 5th place here, if they're trying to get into that large team format, just has to beat a 281.5. So that at-large bid is really the big kicker. And so it's going to be an interesting battle between Rocky Mountain and and SC United as we go into these last 2 rotations. It is, a 0.95 lead is not enough to feel comfortable in their spot. So SoCal or SC United needs to be strong on pommel horse here and confident, while the Mavs need to make sure that they find some sticks on rings and make sure they hold their positions on still rings. That's the biggest kicker on rings, is they have to hold for a full 2 seconds. So many guys get up, they hold 1, 2, and then they move. But when they think 1, it's the beginning of the first second. They end up with a short hold deduction. So they have to hold that 3rd second, make sure they get all the way through a full 2 seconds before they move. So this is going to be an exciting competition as it heats up in rotation number 5 of 2025 Western Conference Championships. Warm-ups are wrapping up here. All right, the 1.5 gap between Washington and Bay Area. Here comes the first punch in this fight. Bradley Stroud taking a floor exercise from the Huskies. And Alexander Kotnick ready to throw the first punch, trying to keep Rocky Mountain at bay here on pommel horse. All right, Kayla Demarest from the Mavericks looking to answer SCU on pommel horse right here on still rings. Armadillos are taking the vault. Armadillos definitely look like they're going to be a strong contender for that Commissioner's Cup at National Championships in 2 weeks. Arizona State with Will taking to the bars here, with parallel bars looking to increase that lead and honestly looking to put up bigger than a 300.75, because Minnesota's watching this stream right now and keeping an eye on the scores, looking to see who's going to come home the king of GymACT in 2 weeks. All right, Bay Area taking to the high bar to see if they can keep Washington at bay on 4. Big pike Tkachev from Bay Area.
Okay, here goes Alexi with a release connection here. Yamawaki Ginger fighting to stay on. Looks like Yamawaki Tkachev Ginger, and it looks like he took that Tkachev just a little bit too far. Brought the Ginger in well, but his dowel was not all the way around the bar.
But interesting thing is he holds on to what's called credit for the skill. So there's a connection bonus for connection to releases like that. And as long as both hands are still in contact with the bar and the athlete passes through the uprights of the high bar, they hold on to credit, which means he keeps all the connection bonuses and all the credit for all the skills. So he holds on to those difficulty. And that is huge. Fighting for credit is one of the biggest things athletes have to learn how to do in this sport, and know where that line of credit is and hold on just long enough to make sure that that happens. All right, SC United started off with a 10.3 on pommel horse. It's not what they're looking for, but they just answered with their second routine of the night. So they've got 3 more routines to come up, and they need to be strong ones. Washington starting with a giant double front on floor. Yurchenko entry here on vault from the Armadillos. Nice big layout with a strong landing.
That is a vault that we can expect to see upgraded here in a year or two, I think, because his repulsion from the table is excellent.
Absolutely. Big diameter quarter there from Arizona State on parallel bars. Should be coming into a strong dismount here, and another skill or two is a beautiful Healy. Very interesting. We're still seeing guys do that, even though it got downgraded in value. big double pike way back.
Catches him as he flies over the concrete. That was a well overpowered dismount.
And what a great catch from Nick Mock, who is a former junior athlete in the club that the Arizona State guys train at. Just there, ready to go to keep him off the concrete. That was impressive. Bay Area, small mistake there with a direction change. All right, Rocky Mountain looking good in their handstand positions here. Again, we're watching the battle between Rocky Mountain and SCU. Very strong finish for Bay Area there on high bar. Way to stay calm and put his dismount the other direction and not really take too much concern over it. Big double layout from the Huskies on floor. You can hear in the background of my microphone, you hear head coach Hines of SC United getting excited for his team out here hitting routines. Love to see it. Huskies finding some great landings, showing off their non-acrobatics. All right, let's see what the Huskies have here. Nice stuck laid out front full there from the Huskies on floor.
And he should be winding up for his dismount. And it's going to be a double back. A little short on the landing. A little bit of chest down, a little bit of a step. Solid routine still for Zach Murray. And Albert Chang is on the high bar for the Bandits. Albert's also got some pretty nice clean in bar. Here he goes into his check giants. Strong compression, missed the angle a little bit over the top, and a very unconventional release move coming out of those check giants to a Tkachev. And now he's just got to settle in for the dismount.
Nice clean double tuck there. All right, peach handstand there from Arizona State. Dealing a little around the side, but stays calm, puts it right back in the middle. That is competitive prowess right there. So many guys panic at that moment because you're on one arm, you're over the side of the bars. It's a little scary, and he just stayed calm, waited to put his second hand down, squared it up.
And there's a clean landing on that double pike.
This is an exciting round of competition. The battle back and forth between our two big battles we're watching here is intense. Rocky Mountain is answering SC United's floor score here. As SC United's really fighting to hold on to every 10th. As we've talked about, Palm Morris is probably the hardest event to stack a team score in, and they're doing a great job of holding on to every 10th they possibly can. Bay Area fighting to hold on to every 10th they can as Washington is getting hungry. I think Washington is really used to being in the top 3 and definitely in the top 2. And they don't like when they look over at the scoreboard and there's a possibility of them falling out of the top 2. So they're answering some super clean landings here.
Now this next routine is going to be a huge deciding factor in how this rotation goes, because Will can swing high bar with the best of them. He's got a strong start value and excellent execution.
That was a... Whoa!
When he needs to, and that was a beautiful connection. Tap Takamoto to Ginger.
Will has upgraded this routine. These are check giants right here. Very few guys do them, but he does them very well. Cow hop to handstand. This is going really well for Will. Let's see what else he's got. Nice Adler to handstand. All right, should see a pirouette to a dismount here. I think dismounts are the hardest thing for Will on high bar. Until that one, he has put in work there, and Will Pierce, the man, the myth, the legend, throws down for Bay Area, saying, hey, we want to be on the podium here. We see Washington over there putting down stuff. We can put it down too. That was an incredible routine for Bay Area from Will Pierce.
He is stoked.
Arizona State, like I said, I know I talked to Arizona State's head coach, Scott Barclay, while they were in their open warmups, and I made sure he knew the results of the Eastern Conference Championships. And I happen to know he took that information, huddled his guys up, and he told them exactly what Minnesota scored in their 8 conference championships. So I think Arizona State is here to prove that it's going to be a fight to the death in 2 weeks in Sandy, Utah National Championships. They have been on top of GymACT for so long. Getting taken down last year to second place, I think made them angry, and I think it lit a fire under them, and they are headed for a large team score here. Breaking 300 in this code is not easy, and if they can keep this pace, they're definitely going to do it.
Xander Agadon Washington with a short landing on his double Arabian. Beautiful mount with a double front. Let's see if he can recover here for the rest of the set as Arizona State takes back to the P-bars.
It's looking good. Good handstand line there. Rocky Mountain putting up another guy on rings there. Sorry, got distracted by Arizona State. That Peters, which that Stutz to one bar action, flew halfway across the rails. It's very, very rare to see, and he handled it so well. Rocky Mountain with a strong cross with definitely a no holds short deduction into that L seat pullout, which upgrades to a C value skill.
And a keki, another skill you don't see that often. But done
State
one of my favorite skills on rings.
into a back 1.5 with a stuck landing. The Rocky Mountain Mavericks came through and just stuck a back 1.5. Such a rare dismount you don't see very often. And he threw down. This is going to be a fight to the death as we head to rotation 6. We're not done with rotation 5 just yet. We're starting to wrap it up. SC United finishes Palm Horse with a 43.45. That's definitely going to be interesting to see if Rocky Mountain can battle them here on rings to catch them as they come in to rotation number 6. Kansas City putting up their first guy on Palm Horse.
And swinging very strong, very quick. But he's got to make sure he watches that hip angle as he goes into his dismount. A little bit of hip angle can take you right off the horse if you're not ready to get it back under control. And it looks like we have Evan Hymanson up on high bar now.
Evan's definitely a guy right here. Everybody is going to want to watch this high bar camera right here.
This has got to be the routine he's most well known for, and for good reason.
Absolutely. In this code of points, any big dismounts are definitely well rewarded, and he's got one of the biggest. However, he did take a little fall there on parallel bars. We saw him pulling on his finger. We'll see if he's staying healthy enough here to keep this dismount together.
Now, I know it's supposed to be a connection right there, straight from the talk half. So he had to make a little bit of an adjustment there, but he did it really well.
He does that skill very well. It's called a Piatti. When you come in close to the bar in a straddle, called a Stalter, out into that same Tkachev release we saw from Washington earlier. Evan is definitely flying on this high bar routine right here. Here we go. Let's keep an eye. Evan Hymanson, the whole crowd is behind him. 1, 2, 3, and almost sticks what's called a Wittenberg off high bar. That is an unbelievably huge dismount. What a great comeback for Evan after a rough parallel bar rotation. Bay Area Bandits saying they want to hold on to that second place they had coming into rotation 5. I did get word that we do have live team scores coming up on the live stream. Big thing to remember is that if you're celebrating with your team, don't celebrate until the rotation is actually all the way over, because some teams may only have 3 scores in when they get to count all the way up to 4. So let's see as we wrap up here with Arizona State on parallel bars. And Rocky Mountain still waiting to put their last 2 guys up on still rings. These battles we've been watching all night, it's going to be really interesting. My co-host here, Carl, and I are sitting in front of the scoreboard, so our backs are turned to it. And I'm trying not to glance back because I'm really excited to see where this rotation lands before we actually get all the scores in. Rocky Mountain Mavericks have 2 more left in this rotation, so we are keeping our eye on the Mavs on still rings. Carl, as a rings guy yourself, take us through. What do you think the hardest thing as a ring swinger is to do?
So there are usually one of two things. Typically, you are either a guy who's got a lot of strength, you're loaded up on strength, and it comes down to managing your swings, and especially the swings that go through handstands, and also saving your endurance for the dismount. Or you are a very strong swinger, and you got to make sure that you're hitting your strength and getting your full duration hold, so you're not taking deductions for short holds. For the guys that are the standouts on rings, they've got a good balance of both, and it really comes down to making sure there's no swing that gets away from you. And again, the giants are the easiest ones for that to happen on. You miss a single handstand, and it can be catastrophic. You can end up with a massive amount of swing that you have to deal with, and that can make the dismount not only difficult but extremely dangerous.
Right, and I wanted to mention something being live here in the venue. Something really cool just happened. Everyone knows Evan. Everyone knows his big dismount on high bar. And as he hit the pirouette over the top, I am not joking when I said every seating corral was on their feet, screaming their heads off, making sure he knew he had the support of not only his team, but every athlete in the building, every parent in the building. This is what's so cool about this sport is we all want to see everybody hit their very best. No one wants to win because somebody else had a mistake. Everybody in this building, these athletes really do look out for each other. They cheer each other on, and they want to see everybody hit and really see, hit for hit, who really has what it takes. So it was a cool moment. The energy in this building just went through the roof as soon as he hit that pirouette. And it's so cool to be coming together.
It absolutely was. And I gotta say, the greatest uniting factor in our sport is everybody loves to see big skills.
Absolutely. And just good gymnastics, even if it's not the biggest skill you've ever seen. Everyone just wants to see guys succeed and do their best and hit what they've been training. Now, everybody likes seeing a triple pike off high bar, especially when it almost sticks. All right, final routine of the rotations from the Mavericks right here. Let's see what we got. A little bit rough on that front uprise. Fighting for it. Big piked Yamawaki. That's that double forward. That's that forward flipping double front in between the rings. He's got a lot of swing here, like Carl, you just mentioned. Missed one handstand. Let's see if he can mitigate it.
And he is continuing to fight for those supports. And here comes the dismount. He put that down pretty well under the circumstances. He did a very good job of getting that dismount down the way it needed to come down. Because like I said before, I've seen a lot of dismounts go rough this weekend during the junior sessions. So good on him.
All right, that concludes rotation number 5, which means we are headed into the 6th and final rotation. Again, we're going to wait just a second to make sure all the scores are cleared, all the scores are entered before we really talk about the standings. But just to recap, the big battle we are watching is between Rocky Mountain and SC United, both wanting to qualify in the large team format to have a chance of getting on the podium at GymACT National Championships in the large team format. They are both trying to qualify there. Again, if they don't hit that, they do end up in the small team format. And again, that has nothing to do with the roster size of the program itself. It's just the format they use to compete at national championships. Florida Storm won the first ever Commissioner Cup. It would be really interesting to see both of these teams in the Commissioner Cup 3-up 3-count format. Could be deadly. So it's going to be really interesting. And if you're another one of the smaller teams using that format, you're definitely watching this competition, seeing who else is going to qualify into it to see who can win that coveted Commissioner's Cup. All right. Our meet referee is conferring, making sure that all the ring scores are in. I'd like to say thank you to the National Judges Association for providing today's officials. These guys have already been in their chairs for about 8 to 10 hours already, and they still are here judging the GymACT session, and that's huge. These judges have so many different rules to keep track of. They take the time to make sure that all their scores and judgments are 100% accurate, and that is huge, and it's a huge amount of respect because it is a large undertaking to have all the different rules. They've been judging junior athletes all day long, and now they're switching to the GymACT code. That's why sometimes we do have a little bit of downtime, just double checking that they didn't make a simple mistake. As it is so easy, this code of points is so easy to make mistakes as a judge, and they've done a great job all night. All right, Arizona State right now sitting at a 261.15. With a good high bar rotation, they could hit a season high here that very, very few teams have been able to touch. We're not going to talk about it too much. Don't want to jinx anything. Don't want to be accused of jinxing anything. So we are sitting at a 261.15 for Arizona State. Bay Area holding on to a 248.7. Washington in third with a 247.5. Rocky Mountain with a 238.05. SC United with a 232.4. And then Texas Armadillos at a 215.15. And Kansas City sitting at a 70.05. Now, the biggest reason Kansas City's score is so much lower than everybody else's is they only have 2 athletes here. As I mentioned earlier, they're already qualified to the Commissioner's Cup, but they only have 2 athletes here. And they're not doing everything as they're already qualified through. This is just great experience for them and representing their program here at Western Conference Championships. When they have their whole lineup, they could be an interesting squad to watch in contention for that Commissioner's Cup at Nationals in Sandy, Utah here in 2 weeks. All right, Carl, looking at the scoreboard, I think Arizona's far enough out. I think Bay Area Bandits, even though they're headed to floor, I think Bay Area Bandits would have a very, very hard time catching them. You don't
think they can pull a 22 per routine? No, I'm with you. I think that Arizona has this safely in the bag. However, between Bay Area and Washington, I am always rooting for Washington. Ending on Pommelhurst can go either way because they have fantastic composition on pommels, and they have guys up that are historically very good at hitting Pommelhurst. The nature of the event is it can go either way. Bay Area finishing on floor gives them a little bit more of an advantage, I think. Floor is like ball. It is one of those events that tends to score a little bit higher. If they can watch their landings, make sure they keep themselves on the floor when they need to, off the floor when they need to, I think they have a strong chance of keeping their lead over Washington.
I agree. And, Rocky Mountain is headed to vault, which is a solid place to end the night. And SCU is headed to rings. 2 fairly strong events for both these teams. So that's going to be a tight battle. However, I think SCU is going to have a hard time coming up with the 6 points they need to climb over Rocky Mountain. Now, SCU is trying to climb out of the 281. SCU needs a 49.15 as the commissioner, Mark Bourget, sitting here doing the math. SC needs a 49.15 to hold on to the at-large bid to stay in the large team format for GymACT National Championships. So that's going to be the really interesting one to watch, is to see if they can find that 49.15 team score on rings. That means they need to average a 12.28 per routine. That's going to be a tall order. And Carl, I think one of the biggest things for Arizona State right now is, almost, not to get too big for their britches. They're in a great spot. But, right now they're not trying to win this meet. They're trying to make sure they send Minnesota a message.
That's right.
From a 261.1, they should be able to find that 300 plus pretty easily. However, you and I both know gymnastics isn't over till it's over. If they get they're young men. If they get a big head right now and make, a handful of mistakes, it could get tough for them to find it. So they've got to stay a little humble here. They've got to carry the confidence of 5 great rotations, but they have to stay calm enough to really make sure they put down a great team score here and send a message to Minnesota, who I'm sure is watching this thinking the exact same thing. It's going to be a great battle between these 2 superpowers at national championships in 2 weeks. Rocky Mountain looks like they have upped their vault game for sure.
Yep, looking at their warm-ups, this is going to be probably absolutely a rotation to watch for them.
All right, we're winding down warm up here in the arena, and it's going to get really exciting as we are 5 routines per event from crowning the best of the West and seeing who's going to qualify into that at-large bid for the large team format at GymACT National Championships in 2 weeks in Sandy, Utah.
Up on the floor first for the Bay Area Bandits, it is Zach Miller. Zach is kind of like me. He was coaching this entire season. He's a coach who has returned to competing this year and done so with great success. He has looked great in training.
A little tough on that connection, but stays calm, keeps it under control, mitigates what could have been a very large deduction down to just a few small ones.
And Washington up on the pommel horse with, I believe that is Bradley Stroud. Big rotation for Washington.
Huge connection pass for Bay Area there, just stacking difficulty. That was a great start to their hunt to hold on to that second place.
Zach Miller celebrating as he hits his first competitive routine back from retirement.
Justin Smith taken to the high bar for Arizona State. It's one of their team captains, like we talked about earlier. This guy is definitely a bigger guy for the sport of gymnastics, but I love watching his gymnastics because he's a big guy. It's a lot of human being flying through the air in that connection. I have no idea how he got that. He was so far out and he just finished the reach. This is a fantastic routine, but he's a bigger athlete, and it's so fun to watch him swing because he just doesn't look like he is struggling at all to just throw down, full twisting, double layout, and that is a stuck dismount from team captain Justin Smith for Arizona State on high bar. All right, Rocky Mountain trying to put the nail in the coffin, holding on to their locked spot in the large team format at GymACT National Championships. Let's see what we've got here from Rocky Mountain.
Looks like he got a little bit lost there through the middle of that vault. Fought it around to his feet well, but a fair bit of deduction there.
Yep, and definitely stepped both feet out of bounds. So you get the deduction for the step plus 3/10 for leaving the boundary on the vault landing there. I don't know if you guys can see it in the camera there, those lines that angle out from the vault. So not a bad start for Rocky Mountain, but they definitely wanted something a little bit stronger just to keep SC United at bay.
Trevor Ruggieri is up for Washington on the pommel horse and swinging well. Gotta notice the guys that always look the best on pommels, yep, there we go, tend to swing the best. Ignoring that, because they have such a long line. When they get a good swing going, it always hits the eye well.
Absolutely. The guys that can get their hips all the way open and keep their body completely straight are definitely the best.
Out now. So his teammate before him, Bradley Stroud, put up a routine with 5.5 total in deduction. A 9.45 execution on pommel horse is incredible.
Big straddle Tkachev here for Arizona State. Put it way too close to the bar, but handling it well, minimizing the deduction, not taking a full fall. Now he's got to calm down, put his nerves at bay to find some great gymnastics through the rest of this routine for Arizona State on high bar.
High flying now for Arizona State.
All right, SC United with a solid ring routine. Their first routine was definitely not that 12 average they're looking for to lock their spot at GymACT National Championships in the large team format. That's really important to discern here, is that if they don't hit that 281.5, it doesn't mean they're not going to nationals. It just means they are not eligible for large team format That doesn't mean the team itself is any bigger or smaller. It just means that they have to put 3 events up and only 3 scores count.
And Rocky Mountain put up the second front handspring front fold that we've seen tonight. Not a common vault at all, but done exceptionally well.
Absolutely. And Rocky Mountain has not been very strong on vault typically. Normally that we are not seeing this high a difficulty. Let me rephrase that. They have been strong, but have not had the difficulty to put up a big score. And they've definitely been working on that here with Coach Tabor. Many of you know Coach Tabor, as he is the famous Tabor from Tabor Time that they do on their social media. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you go check them out. Rocky Mountain Mavericks on social media to see all the fun stuff they do. All right, Arizona State at a 288.8 currently, or sorry, 284.4 currently, looking to break that 300.
And that was a clean cause full with a landing completely out of bounds for Rocky Mountain. Rocky Mountain has been throwing some big vaults this rotation. It's one of my personal favorite skills on the high bar, Zulamin.
Love that skill when it's done well. It's so clean.
The trick is to make sure that the one-arm giant does not turn into a no-arm giant. As I've unfortunately done in the past.
Zulamins can be turned into Zulu O-mans. Here we go, Arizona State. Big, double twisting, double layout. Fighting for the stick and taking a small hop. SC United putting up some really nice pike tail Milwaukees. That's a double flipping action between the rings again. They're looking for that 12-2 average on rings. Staying calm in that handstand work. The strong dismount there for SCU. Washington back to the leather with on pommel horse. Huge back double pike from Bay Area on floor exercise.
And Riley Lineman is off of the pommel horse. So Evan has only just recently returned to training floor. He's a solid tumbler, but he had stepped back from training all around, so he's been training floor just recently.
Which is interesting. He took a break from it because definitely a solid routine for Bay Area here on floor exercise.
Evan is an exceptionally well-rounded athlete. He does everything, and he does everything pretty darn well. I'm going to close my mouth now.
This is why I don't commentate about pommel horse. As I said, I shouldn't say the words pommel horse, I swear. All right, Arizona State on high bar. Nice half Takamoto there on high bar from Arizona State. Armadillos with a solid parallel bar routine happening. Big flying giant from Arizona State. Here we go, coming into a big dismount. Double twisting, double layout. Just a small hop out.
And as has been Arizona State's pattern, they keep bringing the difficulty with the dismounts. And dismounts can stack so many points in your favor in this new code.
Absolutely. All right, Arizona State without that last score in is at a 297.3. So I believe that I only have 3 scores in. SCU putting down a beautiful stuck dismount there on still rings. Still have another ring routine to go there to find that magic 281 they're looking for. Sorry, 281.5 or higher. Bay Area putting up a beautiful back 2.5 there on floor exercise. Bay Area putting down some very nice Russian work that's called the Fedorchenko. It's a triple Russian like you see on pommel horse on the floor exercise. Team captain Caden Peacock getting ready to take to high bar for Arizona State. This is going to be a fun routine to watch. All right, Caden Peacock on the pipe. Let's see what he's got here. Bay Area Bandits finishing with a solid stuck dismount. It's called a Rebalco, that 1.5 twisting flying giant over the top. Huskies getting back on Palm Horse.
Another one of those less common elements you see since United States high bar has kind of moved away from a lot of those turning and L grip elements.
Beautiful quast. That's that same element minus a half twist. Big dismount should be a double twisting, double layout. And that's a stuck dismount from senior team captain Caden, the man, Peacock. Arizona State heard what Minnesota did. They said, not this year, guys. So Minnesota, if you're watching, you guys are gonna have a fight on your hands at GymACT National Championships in 2 weeks. This is gonna be a fun battle to watch. We're gonna wait for that final score to come in to see what Arizona State ends the night with. We got a couple more routines. All right, the legend himself from Bay Area, Will Pierce, taking a floor exercise. You know him, you love him. Let's watch him throw down on floor as the Huskies are back on Palm Horse.
Carter Hawthorne, absolutely a name to watch on pommels.
Will Pierce on floor with a 2.5 front lay as his opening pass.
That beautiful double pie heel. He seems to have flashed back to 3 codes ago when you were allowed to Sassone right out of those landings. Make sure you stay and show control on every landing that you do.
Kind of a rare skill there. You saw him do a backflip into a push-up position. It's called an endo on floor exercise. This is what I love about Will Pierce's gymnastics.
And you're funny you say it's rare. He's actually the 3rd guy from the Bay Area to do that.
Oh wow, I missed the first 2.
This rotation, they all, yeah, it's a little maneuver that they all take advantage of, and it looks good. Toma Murakawa put up a solid score on floor for the Bandits just one routine ago.
And that is a stuck dismount from Bay Area Bandits on floor exercise. The Bay Area Bandits, man, they have picked up so much steam last year. It is incredible to watch. All right, like I said, I believe there are team scores being flashed on the live stream. Make sure you sit tight. I'm sitting next to head scorekeeper Hines. He's going to give me the green light when he knows all scores are in before we talk about how this meet actually finishes up. I'm watching the meet ref run around, talking to judges. There's a lot of just questions and just double checking. As if you're looking at the same scoreboard I am, you can understand why coaches are wanting to make sure every judgment was 100% accurate. And again, thank you to the National Judges Association for providing officials for today's competition. Oh my gosh. Yes, that was a gunny. That was a dead hang pull to cross from SC United.
Strong. All right.
There's strong, and then there's that. Haven't seen that in so long. This is an unbelievable ring routine for SCU.
Now he's got to make sure he maintains here with the swing work. Again, once you've burned yourself out on all that strength, making sure you can hit those giants clean and get through your dismount is a challenge. And he does it. Little sloppy on the dismount, but that was an incredible show of strength.
Absolutely. Smart from the Huskies there. You saw he tried to get his hands back across the horse and get back over. That normally upgrades the dismount another letter value, but he couldn't get there. So he just made sure he turned 90 degrees from the horse, keeps the original value he's going for. Very quick thinking from the Huskies there. All right, SCU still has one more routine to go here on still rings. This has been an exciting conference championships here in Reno, Nevada. There are so many teams throwing their name in the hat for so many different things. We're waiting on the final rings routine here from SCU. This will wrap up 2025 GymACT Western Conference Championships. If you're looking for any individual results from a loved one or a teammate, make sure you check out in the comments. There should be a link to the meet scores online that will show you any of those results. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to bring you the awards presentation live on here. So if you're looking for results, make sure you check them out there. After this final rings routine, Carl and I will give our final thoughts and we'll kind of wrap this up. If you haven't done so already, couple of big things. First of all, make sure you like and subscribe to the GymACT YouTube channel right here, because as you notice, you do not want to miss the battle that is coming in 14 days from today, 2 weeks in Sandy, Utah, at GymACT National Championships, both for the title and the crown of the King of GymACT, but also for the crown and the coveted Commissioner's Cup in its second year. Make sure you have your notifications turned on and you have subscribed right here to the GymACT YouTube channel so you don't miss that. Also, go to gymact.org to see how you can get involved, and make sure you check out all the information on the amazing camps they're putting on this summer. If you have an athlete that is thinking about doing college gymnastics at all, whether it's NC2A or GymACT, doesn't matter. This is one of the best uses of your time and money to come to a camp where all of the GymACT programs are represented. I cannot stress that too much. Carl, you and I both run junior programs. It is a camp that I am pushing my guys to try to attend. It is, it's a big expense, but you get a lot for it because every team is represented.
Yeah, for these young athletes that are looking at going to college, for them to get out and actually experience these camps with these college athletes and with these coaches, it is such an important and such a great way to open their eyes to how many opportunities are out there for them if they're willing to look for them. And we are over to the rings for the final routine of the evening from Southern California.
All right, SCU having a strong showing here. Nice press work, keeping the shoulders free of the cables there. That is one of the hardest things to do. All right, SCU finishing up here. Nice big double tuck, and finish the night with a stick. That's gonna be right there.
That is a great way to wrap up the meet. Stuck landings were few and far between, but it is a great time to see when they're at the end.
All right, we're going to give everybody just a second to make sure all of our scores are finalized. All right, Carl and I are here. Turn this way so you guys can see us. All right, Carl, what was your big takeaway from tonight?
I was really impressed. Arizona State, as always, and unsurprisingly, had a fantastic showing. Maybe the best that they have looked, even stronger than last year. So I absolutely believe that they can give the Beast in the East a good run for their money. Bay Area surprised me. They were strong. They had a lot of mistakes. A lot of the stronger athletes that we were holding in reserve for this meet had a lot of mistakes. But even with that, I believe that was still, by several points, their highest team score of the season.
Absolutely. And I think GymACT Nationals, this is the tightest battle we've seen. I mean, Arizona, unbelievable. 312.6. These are fairly finalized. They're verifying everything. 312.6. That's a huge team score. That's going to be hard to catch for anybody. However, Bay Area, 298.1. That is within striking distance of Minnesota, and that's unbelievable. Washington having a little bit of a rough go of it there on Pommel Horse, coming home with a 294.45. But look at that Pommel Horse score. It's only a 46.95. We know they're capable of breaking 50 on Pommel Horse.
I believe that Washington is one of the stronger teams on Pommel Horse, but they got to stay on and they got to hit their routines. That can be said about any team, but for them especially, they have such good routines. They have so much potential. It just didn't pan out tonight. I do think they have a great showing on vault, because they've historically been lacking in difficulty on vault in past years, and they look great tonight. Even with one fall, they are throwing bigger vaults, and they're finally getting their foot in the door there with more difficulty. And the difficulty is usually where they start falling behind.
And, I mean, then you look at Rocky Mountain. I think this is one of the tightest they've been to Washington. A 290.0. for a team that's been building, that is a fantastic score. SC United going to a 280.15. So just barely missing that 281 or 281.5 they needed to lock their spot. So they will be competing at GymACT Nationals for the Commissioner's Cup. Now, if I was Florida Storm, Texas Armadillos, KC United, any of the other small team format competitors for that cup, I'd be scared of SoCal or SC United. I apologize. This is going to be an incredible competition here in 2 weeks. So our final thoughts, make sure you don't miss this. National Championships in 2 weeks is going to be unbelievable. I know Bay Area Bandits wasn't even at full strength tonight. They've had a few injuries, a few things they're watching out for. That 2 points that they need to catch up to Minnesota could 100% be there. Washington staying on and hitting a little harder than they did tonight, looking like they peak at nationals.
Have points and points to make up. They had a strong showing on events, but I know they have a lot more left in the tank. And I'm hoping and I'm looking forward to them showing that nationals.
I think this is the first time we can say there are 5, maybe 6 teams that are truly capable of getting those 3 spots on the podium. I think we can confidently say, barring any disasters, Arizona and Minnesota are going to be on the podium. What order they're going to be in is going to come down to that night. That 3rd spot, though, there are easily 3 or 4 teams, along with Indy Ohio, who went 295.8 tonight. So they're in this fight, too. It's going to be an incredible battle, and this has been the coolest thing. This is kind of the last thing I want to leave all of our viewers with. The coolest thing about GymACT is, we talked about it earlier as we got started, the gaps in the scoreboard are gone. You know, Arizona State ran away with this tonight. However, they bobble a little bit. It's not hard to lose some of that. I don't know how Minnesota did tonight. I don't know how well they hit. With a 300, I'm assuming they didn't hit quite as hard as they normally do. 300 is kind of right. It's toward the bottom end of the top of their score range. So it's going to come down to that night. And Bay Area, Washington, Rocky Mountain's in there, Indy Ohio's in there, Temple's in there with a 290. Like, it's going to be a great battle. So thank everybody who watched tonight. If you want to look for individual results, check out the comments. There's a pinned comment in there. I'd like to say thank you to Breeze Olson for kind of helping keep an eye on the comment section and helping feed me some information here. I want to say thank you, a huge thank you to our executive producer, John Lucas, who is back in California, who hopped in, changed his plans today to make sure both these streams came live. I cannot say thank you enough to John. He took a huge load off everybody's plate by changing his plans. He was going to drive all the way out here, and instead he stayed home to make sure his stream went well. So huge thank you to him, and a huge thank you to Carl for giving up your evening, sitting here with me, calling GymACT Nationals. It's a pleasure always, and we will see everybody in 2 weeks at GymACT National Championships. And make sure you interact. Go to our social medias. Hop on the comments here. Who do you think's coming home the king at GymACT, and who do you think's coming home with that Commissioner's Cup? Thank you all so much for watching. Carl, thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure.
We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.